Hello. So, Assassination. I switched over from Outlaw, looked at Assassination and Subtlety, decided Assassination had more of what I was looking for. It's a more well-rounded spec. So, I have set everything up. I have done some world quests and PvP. So, I'm going to do a two-part review like I've done before. So if you're curious why I picked the talents I did, that will be the second part, is me kind of working through why I picked everything, kind of theory crafting, what would be best to take. And in this part, I'm going to attempt to do a somewhat concise overview of my impression. So, the two things that I mainly was looking for that Outlaw did not seem to do very well in, was not strong in, was wanted something that had more control from the stealth abilities, just more ability to stun and just more abilities in general, and something that had more AoE, and Assassination has AoE. So as far as the AoE, I have Fan of Knives and then Crimson Tempest as a finishing move, and that's perfectly fine. That's all you need, just one to generate combo points and one to spend, so that works perfectly fine. I was a bit cautious, I think would be a good word, because I typically had stayed away from Assassination because it typically had issues with energy because of Mutilate. Costs 50 energy, you start out with 100, so it was a spec that you kind of had to have a little bit of experience with Rogan to know how to play it, and I never really enjoyed playing it all that much. I would look at it at different times when they made changes, and it just wasn't. I either preferred Subtlety or Combat, which is now Outlaw. So I prefer to play Outlaw. I like Outlaw, but it just does not have much in the way of stealth abilities, and as I said, control if you're trying to do PvP. So that being said, I was pleasantly surprised when I set everything up. I've been doing World Quest in the new Void Zone, trying to get Valor Stones to upgrade my PvP gear, and this spec actually does a lot of damage, and it doesn't have the issues with energy I was quite surprised that I thought it would, and there are a few reasons for that. So the first reason, as with Outlaw, you can take talents that increase your energy, so I'm actually at 300 right now. So you have things that reduce energy costs, you have things that, let's see here, increase energy regeneration. I'd recommend taking Thistletea, just because Thistletea will trigger itself, so you can either use one of the 3 charges, or it will trigger itself if you get below 30 energy, which is quite nice. The main reason I think that I haven't had too much of an issue was because of Venomous Wounds. So you regain energy every time your bleeds damage a poison target. And if an enemy dies while affected by your rapture, you regain energy based on its remaining duration. So that is pretty good. So between the abilities that reduce energy cost and the things that increase your overall energy pool, and then as I said, the few that you have that gain you energy, not to mention your haste. Haste increases energy. So I prioritized when I got my first set of PvP gear, my honor set of PvP gear, I guess you'd say. I was prioritizing mastery and haste, and that seemed to be the correct decision. I was somewhat worried about if I had shorted myself on critical strike, but I don't think that seems to be as much of an issue with assassination. So aside from that, my main complaint, if I had one at all, before I get too far into this, with Outlaw was with self-healing. It's not as much of an issue because you can do a lot more damage a lot quicker with Assassination than you can with Outlaw, but it still is an issue. So they still need to do something, I feel like, with Crimson Vial, or give us some sort of finishing move that heals a bit or something, I think would go a long way. So if they would either just increase the amount or lower the cooldown by just 5 seconds of Crimson Vial, I think that would go a long way. Aside from that, so what I've been doing is I'm going to show you how the spec works. So there's a few abilities that I took that I've mentioned before. One of them was Dragon Tempered Blades, which basically allows you to apply 2 more poisons. So instead of just 1 lethal and non-lethal, you can apply 2 lethal and 2 non-lethal. So that's basically everything you have. Disregard instant poison because it gets replaced by deadly poison, which is your main, your first talent for assassination. So it lets you use wound poison, which does damage and reduces healing, and deadly poison, which does damage over time and damage instantly. Crippling poison, which slows, and then I took a tropic poison, which reduces damage taken or damage done, reducing their damage by, so damage done. And that seems to work perfectly fine. So I had numbing poison for some reason, but I don't see. I think a trophic poison is better, especially with the healing. Being able to reduce damage done to you is pretty good. So in PvP, it's still seemed to be pretty good. So I'm still kind of working out some of the finer points of PvP, but for the most part, been able to stay alive at least a few seconds. So the other thing that I'm quite fond of is Indiscriminate Carnage, which allows Groat and Rapture. That's why it's lighting up right now. If I was to leave combat, you would see, there you go, Rapture light up as well. So it's telling you that it will basically has a cleave effect. So it will apply to up to 2 additional nearby enemies when used from stealth for 9 seconds after breaking stealth. So not too bad. So as I was saying, the main thing that's happening here is once you get all your bleeds and damage and everything out, you can almost one-shot regular mobs. So what I've been doing is starting with Groat, and then using Cheap Shot, and then Ambush, and then that usually gives you about 4 or 5 combo points, so then you can use Kidney Shot. At that point, Stealth has broken, so 3 minutes of Subterfuge, or 3 seconds, excuse me, of Subterfuge usually is up or close to it. And then I've been using a couple uses of Mutilate, because you do get 2 combo points, and I have 6, so then I will use Envenom, and Envenom triggers Poison Bomb, which does a massive amount of, basically puts an AoE on the ground. So think like the Flame Patch from Flame Strike kind of does the same thing. So at this point, you have the damage over time of Groat, the bleed from Groat. You did damage with Ambush. You've used 2 Mutilate, and then you've used Envenom, which does nature damage and increases your poison application chance by 30%. Damage duration increase per combo point. And then you're also applying poison bombs. So you're doing a lot of damage in a very short amount of time, and then I just kind of work in Shiv. Shiv is part of the one of the main abilities for Assassination. You can technically use Groat out of Stealth, but you don't get the silence effect, and that's what I wanted, so I don't really see the point in using it. It just applies a dot, so if you used it once, you really shouldn't need to apply it again, and it's an 18-second dot, so yeah, and then from there, occasionally I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to work in Rupture. Typically I've just been thinking of it like a bleed, like it is. Right now, like I said, with Envenom, with everything I just mentioned, by the time you go through your stealth abilities and then stealth breaks and you run through your non-stealth abilities, most regular targets are dead, and any kind of rares or elites or anything like that are pretty close to dead, and in PvP you do a fair amount of damage at that point. So that is pretty much the main highlight, I would say. Like I said, just kind of working in Shiv when possible. I did take a few different things for Shiv. As I said, that'll be in the second part when I pick the talents. I was a bit hesitant to pick too many things because I don't like to build talents around one thing necessarily, depending on what that ability is. And I think I picked just the right amount of everything because everything seems to work pretty well together. I don't have like a major cooldown, like you don't have Adrenaline Rush or anything similar to there. There is King's Blade or King's Bane, excuse me, which was the artifact ability from Legion for Assassination. I didn't take that. I don't think you really need it for PvP or for doing anything PvE. If you're going to do like Mythic Plus or raiding, you might want to take a cooldown, but for anything I'm doing, it's not really necessary. And then as with Outlaw as well, you have Deeper Stratagem, and then you also have Senjuin Stratagem. I still don't think you need 7 combo points. 7 is far too many. I'd rather take the improvement for Band of Knives. So that's kind of just been what I'm doing so far. So try to start out in stealth. Still, like I said, still working out the finer points in PvP. Still trying to work out what order to use everything in for the stun. I don't know that Groat is what I'm supposed to be using, but it has a 5-second stun, whereas Cheap Shot has a 6, so I've noticed they have been stacking. Now, there have been a few times where for some reason Kidney Shot would not work. It was kind of the same thing as I've mentioned with Slice and Dice, where if you have a better ability, case in point as with Outlaw, if you use Roll the Bones and you get a combat enhancement that's better than Slice and Dice won't work. I have had that happen with Kidney Shot. If you don't have enough combo points to exceed the stun that's currently in use on the target, it won't work, which is a bit annoying. I know at one point, like, the main thing was to start, the opener was to start with Cheap Shot, but that doesn't entirely make a whole lot of sense, so not sure. Cheap Shot also used to award 2 combo points, so that should be taken into consideration too. There was two reasons to use it. It was a stun and you were generating combo points. Now it just generates 1. So, and I have Shadow Step, which I very much missed. I did not realize how much I missed it until I didn't have it. So, Shadow Step with 2 charges. Yeah, Thrill Seeker. Shadow Step has 1 additional charge. So, like I said, Grout to get the bleed out. Cheap Shot, Ambush. That's usually about all I get to use, and then Kidney Shot, and then 1 Stealth Breaks, 2 uses of Mutilate. I really have just been working Shiv in just kind of here and there. Typically, once I use Envenom, then I'll use Shiv as I kind of work backwards back to Mutilate. And then, depending on the fight, like if it's a boss fight, like a rare, elite, something like that, I'll try to work out at least 1 Rapture, and then just kind of use Slice and Dice when appropriate. So, very, very straightforward, very simple spec, actually. So, Poisoned Knife, it's kind of nice. Just a at-range ability, so, but it still applies your poisons. So, yeah. And then for the hero talents, I just took Deathstalker to play around. Fatebound was what I was using for Outlaw. Worked perfectly fine, really liked it with the whole flipping a coin when you use a finishing move thing that it did. But I was curious to see how Deathstalker worked, and it worked perfectly fine. So I have no complaints there. I really don't cover the hero talents that much because you have to take everything. So, and these probably will change in the next expansion or 2. So, and then for the PvP talent, since I've been messing around with PvP, so I took the main thing is Smoke Bomb is fairly useful, especially if you're going to like capture a flag. You might want to throw this down, before you start to capture the flag, because it will kind of help, so you're not quite as obvious of a target. The nice thing with Smoke Bomb is you're unable to be targeted into or out of the smoke. So it's not just clouding or reducing, it actually works both ways, which is more important than maybe you would realize. And then System Shock affects the target, dealing nature damage and reducing movement speed by 90% for 2 seconds. And then Creeping Venom, movement speed by 5, reducing the target's movement speed by 5% for 4 seconds, reapplying when target moves. So, just kind of more control, more slow. Yeah, so there you go. That was my kind of overview very good spec at the moment in 11.2. Very good with doing damage. Good with single target damage. Good with AoE damage. Good with stealth abilities. Good control. The main thing, as I said, which my complaint was with Outlaw, and would probably be with Subtlety as well, is just the healing. They need to do something different, I feel like, with the healing. Crimson Vial was kind of a nice change from what we had before, which was just the finishing move that would heal you over time. But I do kind of miss that now. I think they could put a weaker version of that in, maybe, just to give us something to spend combo points on, because outside of Slice and Dice, you really don't have anything to spend combo points on outside of combat. So, alright, so I want to set up Assassination. It has a few more abilities that have been looking to use that Outlaw doesn't, and it would be good to have a spec that's set up that can do some more AoE. So, kind of wanted to play around. I looked at Assassination and Subtlety. I normally play Subtlety, but it didn't have the quite as many control stun abilities as I was looking for. So I'm going to try Assassination. So I want to set up the talents and everything, and then there's some world quests and some, probably do some random battlegrounds, and that'll give me a chance to kind of see how everything works. So I went through and kind of reset up the bars just so everything was where I could find it. So now I need to set up the talents. So Assassination works more with poison, so deadly poison is your first ability. Improve shift, now increases your nature damage against the target. Well, since it's the second one, I kind of don't have a point. I don't really use shiv except for removing enrage. You regenerate 8 energy every time your Groat or Rupture deals bleed damage to a poison target. If an enemy dies while affected by Rupture, you regain energy based on its remaining duration. So that's one thing with Assassination. Mutilate is your main ability, which costs 60 energy. It does generate 2 combo points, but it does eat up your energy. So that's typically one reason why I never cared for Assassination in the past. So I'm just taking pretty basic abilities at the moment, it seems like. Kidney shot pressure also apply, and internal bleeding. Yes, I'm definitely with that. That's one we've been taking for a while. Increases the application chance of your weapon poisons by 5%. This, Envenom's effect increases the damage in Venom by, yes. So, coat your weapons with a lethal poison that lasts for 1 hour. Each strike has a 35% chance to poison the enemy for nature damage over 5 seconds. Subsequent poison applications will instantly deal nature damage. So, not terrible. Has a 100% chance to poison. Some cooldown used from stealth. 6 seconds after breaking stealth. That's a good question. Don't wait. Increased damage and has no cooldown. used from... Oh, okay. Yeah, probably want that then. So, this was one of the reasons why I wanted to use Subtlety, because it used to have a stun effect you could take, so I'm hoping somewhere in here I can still... There we go, Iron Wire. Yeah, so we can still do that. Critical strike chance improved by 20% while stealth. And for 6 seconds after breaking stealth. Okay. So, Shadow Step's cooldown is reduced by 13% when used on a target affected by your Garrote. Garrote silences a target for 5 seconds when used from stealth. Enemies silence by Garrote deal 50% reduced damage. Yes, want that. So basically you're stacking. So you're using Cheap Shot, Grouch, and then Kidney Shot. So, Ambush awards 2 combo points, and the other abilities award 1, so you can get to at least 4. So, getting pretty close to like perma-stunning the target at that point. In the past, I've done really well with openers. Anyway, the last time I did anything on my rogue. Mutilate deals an additional 20% bleed damage over 8 seconds. While above 50% of your maximum energy, your Veil, Rupture, and Crimson Tempest consume 2 energy to duplicate 30% of any damage dealt. I don't know. See, it depends on how well I set everything up. Whether that actually gets any use or not. Critical strike chance with attacks that generate combo points grant an additional combo point per strike. Critical strikes that with attacks that generate combo points. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we want that. Fan of Knives has a 10% increased critical strike chance. As critical strike chance applies your weapon poisons. Yes, that's fine. Crimson Tempest. Now, I have seen this used in PvP when I was leveling, messing around with Outlaw. Within 10 yards, causing victims to bleed. Deals extra damage when walls up enemies are affected. I am lacking a finishing move, so I don't have a between the eyes. I have Envenom, and I have Rupture, so Envenom does your direct damage, basically, right? The Blades indeed, dealing instant nature damage, and increases your poison application chance. Yeah. Damage duration increased per combo point, so. And then Rupture is the bleed. Damage over time, yes. So, I actually could put this where between the eyes is, because that is the damage over time effect. So I remember where these abilities are and what they do. Crimson Tempest could be good. Yeah. 10-yard range, though, is not great. But I'll take it and put it where I have Killing Spree. I guess that's fine. That makes sense. Gain 1 combo point. Okay, so I'll just take Deeper Stratagem over here in the combo talents, because I don't need 2. 7 talent points is kind of too much, because you start out with... Well, I have 5, but I'm resetting the talents, but I'm pretty sure you start out with 4 or 5. 5. Because kidney shot has 5. So you'd have at least 5. And then everything else has 6. Yeah, so I've added 1 already, so yeah, you don't need 7. Phantom Knives has its radius increased by 12 yards, deals increased damage. Yeah, I'd rather take that, because that was one of the reasons why I wanted to set this up, stab more AoE. Shiv deals 100 increased damage and has 1 additional charge, don't need that. Grow increases the damage of ambush and mutilate to the target by 20%. That could be good. What was death mark? Because I had this. Carve a death mark into the target. Damage received the second while marked. Grow, rupture, and lethal poisons applied to the target are duplicated, dealing 100% normal damage. Okay. I don't know that I really need that. Well, mutilate is expensive, so deals additional 20% bleed damage over 8 seconds. Deals an additional... Sure, I guess. Okay, so now I need to use 3 more. See, this is what I don't like. You're kind of forced to take something, because I only have 3 abilities to take, right? Yeah. So, Sanjuin bleeds. I guess we're going to see if that works. Yeah, I'd rather have that than the other 2. Your weapon poisons, nature damage over time, and bleed abilities deal 1% increased damage to targets for each weapon poison, nature damage over time, and bleed effects on them. Coat your weapon with a lethal poison that lasts for 1 hour. Each strike has a 30% chance poison dealing nature damage and applying amplified poison. And venom can consume 10 stacks to deal 30% increase. Okay, I've tried this before. I don't particularly care for that. So, yeah, that's fine. And then I'll get used how to lethal dose one way or the other. Prepare a serrated bone spike every 30 seconds, stacking up 3 times. Rupture spends a stack to embed a bone spike in its target, dealing physical damage and bleed damage until the target dies or leaves combat. Refunds a stack if the target dies. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be using Rupture, so damage increase generates 2 additional combo points. Oh yes, that's very good. Each enemy affected by your Rupture increases your agility. Okay. Shiv deals 20% increased damage and no longer cost energy. Not so much interested in the increased damage, but I do like the energy, since energy is probably going to be an issue. Ambush and Mutilate have a 15% chance to make your next ambush free and usable without stealth. Okay, I've tried this. That works really wonky. So, I don't think I necessarily want that. Venom has a 4% chance per combo point spent to smash a vial of poison at its target location, critical pull. For 2 seconds within. Okay, so yeah, that's fine. Okay, so King's Blade was the artifact effect from Legion. Release a lethal poison from your weapons and inject it into your target, dealing nature damage instantly and an additional nature damage every 5 seconds. Each time you apply a lethal poison to a target affected by Kingsblade, Kingsblade damage increased by 20% up to 1,000. You may apply one additional lethal and non-lethal poison to your weapons. They have 30% reduced. Okay. Ground Rapture apply to 2 additional nearby enemies when used from stealth for 6 seconds after breaking stealth. Now that's interesting. Since I'm setting this up partially for PvP and partially to do some world quests, because you have to do world quests to get Valor Stones to upgrade your PvP gear. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a downside to this. It doesn't pull, it just applies their effects. So I think that's, yeah, that's kind of the intent of, you know, more AoE, so. Bleed damage increased, targets below 30% instantly bleed out. Deal fatal damage from the remaining bleed damage you would deal. Exceeds 150. I'm gonna take this. I like this. What all do I have? So yeah, okay. So I normally use wound and crippling. So deadly poison and lethal. So I have 3 lethal, 2 non-lethal because I have the extra deadly poison. Yeah, I think that could be good. Trying to think if there's a finishing move that I'll take. Don't think so. Yeah, so I may end up using Rupture more than I realize, so I'll take that. Each enemy afflicted, and not gonna really probably use it on more than maybe 1 or 2 at a time, depending on indiscriminate carnage. Poisons and bleeds deal 50% increased damage. Targets below 35% health. 30% damage to targets below 35% health. A chance to make your next. Yeah. I like this, but is there anything better? Necessarily increases the damage of your weapons by 10%. Yeah, I don't think I'm really missing out on anything by not taking Death Mark. Yeah, I mean, probably better to have it than not, I guess, at this point. Shiv, I'm not really worried about. Yeah. I may end up having to use this on one of the main abilities, though. I think that was maybe what you were supposed damage affected on the target's bone. I guess that's fine. Again, it depends on how often I can use Mutilate. To really know. Yeah. Okay. So one more combo point to spend. Want to spend it on deals 100% increased damage and has one additional charge. Okay, I'll take that. I'm gonna use Shiv. I'm gonna leave it here. I'm gonna take lightweight Shiv just to have something as kind of a filler ability for Mutilate. Because I do have horrible memories of energy regeneration being a problem for Assassination. So, now to set up the rogue talent, so I'm just going to go through and set up what I have set up on my outlaw as best as I can remember. Increases non-damaging effects of your weapon poison for 100%. Sure. Energy cost of yes, that's fine. Reduces cooldown of sprint. That's fine. Iron stomach. Yes, have that. Reduces the duration of movement. Slowing effects. Yes, for PvP that would be good. Sprint increases movement speed and additional for force. Sprint increases movement speed by an additional 30% and has a 4-second increased duration. Yes, why wouldn't we? Fint has one additional charge. I don't really know if I need that. Energy cost of kidney shots are reduced. Yes. Has a 30% reduced cooldown. I don't think I'll be using that very often. Have a 30% reduced damage and healing for 6 seconds after blind or zaps at its ends. Well, I will be using blind. So that may not be terrible. I think I took that. Well, still, Shadow Dance is active. Shadow Dance. I don't have Shadow Dance. While Stealth or Shadow Dance is active, you need 20%. Okay. Leech, yes. I see I have to take that to get down to Subterfuge. Ambush. Generates one additional combo point. Energy cost of finishing moves reduced by 6 seconds. I actually think that would be more useful. Honestly, increases the critical strike chance of your attacks that generate combo points. Increases damage of your weapon poisons. Will increases the critical strike chance of your attacks that generate combo points. A lot of things increase combo points. Mutilate, Shiv, ambush. Sheep shot doesn't do damage. Grout does damage. So your weapon poisons by 10%. Because we do have, what was it, Dragon Tempered Blades? Yeah. So, but what would I be using more often? Increases critical strike chance of your attacks. So attacks would include finishing moves. So Deadly Poison would do more than Verdant? poisons. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be better. Auto attacks increase auto attack damage and movement speed by 1% for 3 seconds, stacking up to 10%. Let's see here. Movement speed increase. There we go. Okay. You are healed 30% of your maximum health over 6 seconds after activating Vanish. Your finishing moves have a 5% per combo point. Just strike one additional. Have a 10% haste for 15. You know what? I'm going to take that even though I don't particularly care for it. Because if it increases haste, haste increases energy regeneration. Critical strike chance increase 1%. Damage. 1% critical strike damage bonus and your attack rates. Yeah, no, okay. So, adds a leeching effect. Target leeches, that's fine. Increases your maximum energy by 50 and energy regeneration by 5, 10. There we go. And Thistle Tea. Thistle Tea will trigger on its own when your energy falls below 30%. At least it does on Outlaw. And you also have it on use to generate, restore 100 energy. So I think that might be more useful on Assassination than it has been for Outlaw. Because I've just been using the passive. I haven't actually had to trigger it myself. So, and then I'd like another charge of Vanish, but I really don't need 2 uses of Subterfuge. So, let's see here. Wound, poison can now stack up to 2 times. Each strike with a 30% chance. Instantly inflict nature damage and reduce all healing. Ah, okay. Again, for PvP, that could be good. Crippling poison reduces movement speed by an additional 10%. Yeah, okay. That's good. Actually, wait a minute. I want the damage reduction, because that has been really helpful on Outlaw. Healing hasn't changed, so that'll give me 3 lethal and 3 non-lethal. No, 2, because I'm swapping numbing poison, slowing their attacks. Yeah, so, yeah. So, I'll be using wound, deadly poison, because it's a better version of instant poison, basically. Yeah, so I'm really not losing anything. So, wound poison, deadly poison, crippling, and then atrophic. There we go. Yeah, and then hero talents. It's so annoying you can't set this up without setting everything up. So, Fate Bound. Okay, I see. Okay, so Fate Bound's what I had for Outlaw. You flip a coin. So heads increases the damage of your attacks by 10%, lasting 15 seconds or until you flip tails. Tails deals cosmic damage to your target. Okay, and then each subsequent flip increases their effects, basically. So Deathstalker. The Harbingers of Death. Deathstalkers strike in the shadows to bring a swift end to their targets. Ambush from stealth applies 3 stacks of Deathstalker's mark to your target when you spend 5 or more combo points on the target against a marked target. You consume an application of Deathstalker's mark, dealing plague damage and increasing the damage of your next ambush or mutilate by 50%. You may only have 1 target marked at a time. you consume the final death cycle from your target or the target dies, you gain 40 energy and your next envenom cast with maximum combo points is guaranteed to critical strike. Deal 60% additional damage, optimize 3 stacks of Deathstalkers marked to the target. Well, you can spend combo points pretty easy. So I already have played around with Fate Bound, so we'll go ahead and try Deathstalker. Worst case scenario, I have to switch back, so randomize, applies marks, deals, plague, okay. Against marked target, okay. Damage dealt to targets other than your marked targets deal 5% okay. Your damaging abilities against targets above 20% health have a very high chance to apply Fatal Instinct when the target falls below 20%. Oh, nice. I like that. Rupture deals an additional plague damage each time it deals damage, stacking up to 10 times. Duration is increased 3 seconds. After death mark expires, gain 30%. Gain 30 seconds of 30% increased nature damage. Let's see. Shiv additionally increases the damage of your next envenom by 18%. Well, there's probably more of a chance, if I'm understanding this correctly, and this is kind of where trial and error playing around comes into effect, but I'm guessing I'd probably use Shiv more after death mark expires. Yeah, it would give me a bit of more of a reason to use Shiv, so. Cloak of Shadows, duration increased by 2 seconds. Envenom reduces the magical damage taken by 20%. Cloak of Shadows reduces physical damage taken by 20%. Ah, that would be better. Okay. If you have critically struck with Fan of Knives, increase the critical strike chance of Fan of Knives and Crimson Tempest by 15% and critical strike damage by 32% for 12 seconds. Fan of Knives, Crimson Tempest deal increased damage while 2 or more enemies are affected with. I see. So critical strike chance, Fan of Knives. Okay. Each time you consume a stack of Death Striker's Mark. Reduce the cooldown of Shadow Step by 3 seconds. Shroud of Concealment. Duration increased by 5 seconds. So. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you have 2 charges of Shadow Step, so. It's rare you'd probably be without it. But. Good to have a little bit of extra cooldown. When you consume the final... Yeah, okay, so I've already read that. Okay, so there we go. So